No, it's going to be up for a while. Now that we've kind of explained the mystery, there's some details we should probably give some people. First of which, for folks who don't know, Glasgow is in Scotland. And Scotland is part of the UK. It's, what would you say? It's about the upper third of the island?
I guess.
It's ballpark that. But with some people, the geography isn't their gig, so I just always try to point that out.
So the island that you're talking about is not the UK, though, right? It's Britain.
Britain.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. It would be Britain.
Some stickler for detail is going to point that out.
Yes, you're absolutely
Facebook.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. I would have got us on that one. I pulled census data because I figured this would probably be important. It didn't turn out in the long run to be as much as I wanted, but there's something to keep in mind, which is Glasgow's a really big city.
Yeah.
The city itself is 68 square miles, which is 175 square kilometers. But there is also the greater Glasgow urban area. That means just all the area around the city of Glasgow.
Yeah, what we call the metro area.
Yeah,
okay, what you would call a metropolitan area.
And that's 142 square miles, or 368 square kilometers.
So it's not nothing.
No, it's a big place. And according to the last census in Glasgow, which when I pulled it was from 2015, there's 600,000 people in the city. Now, census that I pulled for the urban area was from 2001, but at that point it was 1.2 million people. So it's a big city. It's not the biggest city in the world in terms of population density. There's, what did I figure it out here? There's like 8,900 people per square mile or something like that. But it is 44% of Scotland's population lives in that city. So it's kind of the major city.
Yeah.
So that is a lot.
Now, I pointed out that there's the city of Glasgow and then there's the Glasgow greater urban area. That's kind of important to know because if you do ever go dig into the studies, you'll see some studies refer to just the city of Glasgow and some of them that pull from the greater urban area.
Okay.
Now, that's important because are they using the smaller pool of people or the larger pool of people to get their data and to get their results?
I'm not knowing.
I've seen some conflicting reports, but most of them, even when they pull it from the greater urban area, the effect still seems to be present. But it's something to be aware of if you do the reading. Statistics, you gotta love them.
Yeah.
You can work them however you need to.
That's true.
The other bit of technical information that you need to know here, if you do go into any of the reporting, you're going to see a phrase which, believe it or not, took me a while to figure out, and that is excess deaths. I didn't understand that. I was like, isn't every one of them just an excess? I mean,
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. No, it turns out that is the number above and beyond what the expected average is going to be.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get into some more sexy numbers here.
Oh.
I can see the look on Devin's face. She is excited about percentages.
So excited
And her
right
eyes
now.
are just glazed with anticipation.
Alrighty. So, what I'm going to give you here is the percent of excess deaths in the Glasgow area above and beyond what the national average is. And this is going to be for all age groups. So, from 0 to 100.
Or more.
I guess it's
Probably
1 day
not.
to 100. But
Well,
yeah, I guess it could be over 100.
zero.
Yeah, well, you get the point. So we have above the average deaths of cancer is 23.2%. The above...
So it's that much above average.
Yes.
Right, so average is 0 in this case.
Let's say the average was 1,000.
Right.
Okay, so there's the average of 1,000 deaths a year from cancer is expected normal. Then it would be 232 because that's 23.2%. More.
Right. So yeah, I guess I was saying that like you put average at 0, so the 23.2% is above average.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So then we have deaths from circulatory issues, which I would take to mean things anywhere from heart attacks to strokes. But that
fair.
is 27.5%. I never actually got a good explanation of what they meant by that. And then alcohol-related, that is 20% higher than expected.
So that'd be alcoholism and cirrhosis and stuff like that.
Deaths related to alcohol. Yes, exactly.
Does that include like car crashes under the influence?
To be
or anything?
quite
You don't
honest, that is one of the things. So there's a bunch of phrases used, that are never the same from one report to the next. So sometimes it's a little difficult to know if you're comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges.
Okay.
So I can't answer exactly what it is. But if we look at the numbers and we were then to remove anybody who is 65 and over, as our British friends like to say, the pensioners, you take them out, and we have people who die from alcohol-related issues only. It's 32% higher, so it seems like the younger generation maybe is boozing it up more. And then the other thing that's notable for that group is drug-related issues, which is 17% higher than expected.
Interesting.
Yeah, although I've read that they've done studies in other comparable British towns. There's actually there's no more drinking in Glasgow than in other towns.
No, actually, it turns out in Glasgow they actually drink. They have less binge drinking. And it seems like there's less drinking there than the other towns. The towns that you're talking about that are in the reports, in the research, that's going to be Liverpool and Manchester.
Yeah, those seem to be the favorites.
Yeah, because they seem to, through the data somehow, they seem to match up in terms of, I'm guessing, something to do with population size, and then the spectrum in terms of
Population demographics
from way below the poverty line to making X amount or more a year.
Yeah.
Probably similar, male-female ratios.
All those demographics, all that stuff.
majorities,
Yeah, I mean, I've got to presume that's why they would be selected. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense to select them.
Yeah.
That right there, though, believe it or not, that's one of our shortest mysteries, because that is the mystery, is that we've got all these people who are just dying younger than they should, and we don't know why.
Oh, I don't know if you mentioned this. This whole thing actually started in about 1950.
We haven't got to that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh, were you going to mention that later?
Well, no, we can do it. We can talk about it now. That's not a problem at all. You're right, Joe.
One of the things I'm kind of intrigued by, since we're heading into theories anyways, and probably somebody has thought to check this, but were there any major population movements starting about 1950?
So
did a whole bunch of people move away, or a whole bunch of people move in?
So there have been migrations. Glasgow itself, it's always been, or traditionally it was a large industrial city. And they were known for a couple of things, one of which was shipbuilding. That's what brought a lot of people to the city. There was a huge migration push in the 1800s there. A lot of people came in. And when you're in that, what is that era called?
The Industrial Revolution.
Thank you. That word just skipped right out of my head as soon as I wanted it. When the Industrial Revolution hit, it's kind of that typical growing city situation. Everybody came in, and it was a dirty, jammed, gross place, but they made a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then,
but also one can presume not much more. I mean, it wasn't more dirty or jammed than many other major cities that were
no.
way.
It wasn't in any way that I can tell in the research crazier or more dangerous or dirtier or anything like that. And it was kind of average, you're right, until Joe was saying, is that in the 50s. And at that point, that's when they started to see that people were dying younger there than they should have. At the same time, there was migration out of the area, but there's also been migration into the area because, like I said, it started with shipbuilding, and then they had chemical processing, and then I can't remember. I want to say it's a textile. I've got it somewhere in my notes here. I'll find it in a bit. I can't remember what the third industry was, but there were three industries.
I thought it was like plutonium mining and handling or something like that.
No, it wasn't that. But
that would just be the answer then.
But
Yeah,
they weren't clean industries, so it makes sense that their workers are likely to be sicker, except that over time things clean up. But it's no worse than any other industrial. It shouldn't be any worse than in other industrial towns.
Well, yeah.
And that's again the problem. Those industries started moving away. So as these people who are now dying in their 50s and 60s, they were probably born at a time when those industries were just getting out of town.
That doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, so
they shouldn't have been breathing or anything that these plants would have been spitting out.
The genetic donor that created them had something like that caused their, the DNA that they were given to reproduce in a weird way. That's something that they do know. But I mean, again, this is like, we're probably way into your theories at this point.
No, actually not. This is actually, I'm glad Joe brought it up. I hadn't thought about the fact that probably should be talked about in the onset of this before we get into theories.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and just so people know is that, yeah, people were coming in. The cultural demographic of the area has changed over time. So
as with any city.
As with any city, it's changed over time. So it's a completely different gene pool now than it was 50 and 100 years ago.
At least statistically significant.
Yes, significant enough that I would say it's notable.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff has happened, and then the economy's changed. All of the big industries, most of the big industries, I think it's 60-some% of it, started leaving as of, I think, 1960 or 61. They started leaving. Of what they originally had is industrial jobs is what's still there.
Yeah, they do like to put those industries in places where the governments care a little less about regulations.
Yes, that's one reason. So I mean, that's had an effect on it, which is why you see cultural migrations.
Yeah.
Because if I am a shipbuilder and there's no more shipbuilding jobs, I'm going to go somewhere else where I can build ships.
Yeah.
Make that money for building ships rather than flipping burgers at a McDonald's or something.
And then here's the deal: is that the people that migrated out might have actually been a little smarter, a little more hardworking. I don't want to offend anybody from Glasgow, but
I don't think that would have any effect on it.
I don't know. It actually would be a fascinating thing to study. But
I mean, it seems like it's mostly a health issue.
Well, you never know. It might be a genetic issue. Who knows? But it'd be interesting to track down all the people who left Glasgow and see how long they lived. See if leaving Glasgow actually extends your lifespan.
That's true.
Yeah.
Seems like something that they should have done at some point, but
I don't know how easy that is, though.
It would be tough to track out. What you need to do is you'd have to
go on Ancestry.com.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can do that.
Really easy.
Yeah.
Devin's like, for $50 or whatever it is, we could figure this out.
More than 50, I think.
Oh, it probably.
I'm charging $25 to read the Wikipedia page of different cases right now. So I think we'd charge more than 50 to solve this one.
True.
Yeah. That sounds fair.
Now that we've gone through that, let's get into the theories.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the next logical step for us.
I guess.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the first theory, which is poverty. Because, as I said, that's the big one that you will see people point at, is that people who are in a lower economic station in life, they don't have the money, so they're not going to eat as well. They're going to do things that aren't good for them. So
they're going to work in those shipyards or in the plutonium holding
facilities.
We got Homer Simpson here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just a reality that we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As things have changed,
and also just the stuff of the different stresses and the incredible toll that can take on your lifespan, as if you're living paycheck to paycheck or in unstable housing or whatever.
Or if you're on the dole, as they say. Because here's something to keep in mind is that in Glasgow, 1 out of 5 people are out of work. And 1 out of 4 are getting assistance.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot of joblessness. And that means that's a lot of people, as you said, who are kind of scraping by.
Yeah. And the added stress on that, I know they've done so many studies all over the world on how that stress significantly affects the health levels that you'll see.
Yeah, we've got some
and
stuff on that
generations
too.
down even.
Yeah.
Actually, interesting, fun side fact. I think I heard this on like NPR or something like that. So I may have my facts wrong. I'm just recalling. So please don't tell me that I'm lying or anything like that. But I'm pretty sure that they've done studies on the stress levels of pregnant mothers and how it affects the obesity rate of their children, which is so interesting.
I actually have some of that.
Oh, great.
At this point. So that's, you're on track.
Yeah.
It does make a huge difference. So let's talk about... we talked. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, so I just mean that that's something to keep in mind when you say, well, even if, the families are doing better and better, just because that's the case, it doesn't mean that
today, it doesn't mean
they're
generation
not inheriting
2 ago.
something.
Yeah. So if we take a look at the history in Glasgow, you remember I told you there was that big cultural migration in the 1800s?
Yeah.
Well, in the 1950s, there was this thought that we need to build the city, we need to change the city, and so the government actually built a bunch of high-rise tenement housing.
Kind of like we did here in the States.
And Chicago's the one that comes to mind for me. And it was a situation where it was government-owned, and these people were living in it, and conditions weren't always healthy. They weren't clean. I'm not blaming anybody for this. It's just what happened sometimes, as we've seen all over the globe with this kind of housing situation.
So we're saying, so just to be clear, the comparison is that this kind of housing would be the projects?
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
For Americans.
a slum. It becomes a slum in a way. They've now gone back. I think in the last 20 or 30 years, they've started tearing those buildings down.
Oh yeah,
They're
all of them are
trying
gone,
to
I
fix
think.
things up. Unfortunately, it's left this poverty-stricken area because if you can afford not to live in that building, you're gonna escape. People flee that. People who can't.
Yeah.
And so this is something that gets pointed at. It's more of you see it pointed at more than anywhere else in the news reporting of this.
Yeah,
when you get into the actual data, it's actually admirable the amount of work that every researcher does to just kick the living crap out of this theory.
Yeah.
Because they've taken if they take this it's referred to as a socioeconomic factor. That means your station in life, your income level against the poverty line. And when they balance for that and they take it out of the equation, people in that area are still dying sooner than people in similar cities at the same time when they take it and they put it at an even playing field.
Yeah, the thing about this particular mystery is policy advocates usually, use it as an excuse to ride their own little hobby horse. So if you're a big anti-poverty advocate, well, you're going to jump right on this thing, And
and it seems like a really easy thing to blame it on.
Oh,
too,
yeah.
Really easy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the impoverished, or what is it that they get referred to? Disenfranchised, I think, is one of the words that I've seen used. And there's another one in here.
I think that disenfranchised is kind of inappropriate, though.
Well, disenfranchised isn't the word that I'm looking for. It's in here, but there's a couple of different terms that are used. But it is just basically it's pointing at
poor, deprived, all that stuff.
Deprived. Thank you. That was the word that I was looking for.
Okay.
They call it a deprived neighborhood.
The term that you use in social work, at least in America, is you say that these people are experiencing this, not that they are this.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well,
that somebody is experiencing homelessness or experiencing poverty, not that they are the poverty or they are homeless.
It's like, those people that are experiencing stab wounds and stuff like that. Yeah,
kind of.
They're
You are not a stab
You're
wound.
not dead. You're just experiencing a stab wound or two. Yeah, okay.
It's equally painful probably a lot of times, but just as a point of interest. But and just because somebody's poor doesn't mean that they're going to die early.
You don't make that much money. But one of the things, as Joe said, is when you're an advocate of these things and you really want to go after something, one of the things that you'll see pointed at a lot is you'll see behaviors. So eating behaviors will get pointed at. Drinking behaviors, and alcohol is what I'm getting at here, will be pointed at, and smoking.
And drugs.
Yeah. So those are things that get pointed at a lot as, well, it's this group that does that, which is not right. But that's why I say that I like so much every researcher that just went so far to just obliterate this thing.
That's good, because it's so easy to just say, even as somebody who's trying to deal with this in their city, to say, well, it's just those poor people. It's their fault. We don't have to do anything. There's not actually anything wrong. It's just these poor people. It's all their fault.
No,
it's their lifestyle. They just live that way and they die early, and that's fine. So I'm glad to hear that most researchers think that's bunk.
Yeah.
It is bunk.
Well, speaking of some bunk, can we get on to the next theory?
I just wanted to point out
Oh.
the other instance where this kind of association gets made is in the link between poverty and crime, which is a very popular theory.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely not based on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not at all. I mean, there ain't no link. I mean, no causal link anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people wanted to come up with a reason to, like, get the government to throw a bunch of money at poverty. Yeah.
So theory number 2.
Yeah.
This. I actually put this in. I put some of the theories in here in very specific orders because I figured we'd have a lot of fun with them.
I like this one because I think it might apply to us too.
Yeah.
So the next theory that we have is that it is due to